filled in, but the students have to generate their own words. So instead of gap filling just the grammar form, they create their own language, like, if you believe in yourself, you'll be successful. I'll need a lot of willpower if I, whatever the answer is, in my case, want to lose weight, for example. After a week in Russia of eating your great food, I'm going to have to go home and work on that. But you personalize the task that way. The other reason for localizing and personalizing the language is this. I don't know if you can see this at the back of the room. This graph shows you how much a student can typically remember from a lesson. So students, listen carefully, because when you don't remember what the teacher told you yesterday, now you've got a good reason, okay? When a teacher presents a new language point, in the first few hours of the lesson, you might remember about 75% of it, according to studies of the brain. A day later, quite a lot of what we remembered here goes down to about 20–25% if we don't come back to it. So this is why you have to revise for exams. But it's when you do this in the lesson, this represents the lesson, then it drops. It takes a lot of hard work to keep that recall up to that level. For the teachers, it's very difficult, because if you imagine your course book, you do Unit 1 with a student here, and then over the period of however long your courses are, 6 months, 9 months or so on, you go all the way here to, say, Unit 12, so it's not really surprising when you get angry with your students and say, why don't you remember what we did 6 months ago in Unit 1? Students, you've probably got good reasons for not remembering, because a lot of time has passed and we forget all of this. And that's the reason, of course, we need to recycle and revisit the material a lot. The course book can do it to some extent. We can include review pages at the end of a unit so that students revise everything they've touched on. We can ask them to look at the workbook exercises. So this comes from the workbook of life. At the end of the workbook, the students have a revision task where they have to go back to the course book to find answers to the questions. So it's forcing them to revisit the course book. The other thing that we've included with life, and this is useful for the teachers, on the website ngllife.com, you can find Word documents of all the reading texts and all the listening texts and also the video texts in Word format. So you can turn them into gap fills and do whatever you want with them. If you want to change them in some way, you just go to the website. You don't even have to buy the book to go to this website. So if you just want reading materials and listening materials, you can get it for free here, basically, at the different levels. But it's a useful tool if you're a teacher that likes to play around with what's in the book and change it for the class. I want to finish with one classroom activity that teachers, if you haven't got a lesson for tomorrow, it might be of interest, because if you did it in class, it would last about 45 minutes. But we're going to try it in here. This is an example of a teacher repurposing a course book and revisiting it for revision. Can you find the handout that says 1 to 13 at the top? 1 to 13. I'll see if they've got any.
Женя.
Okay, everybody should have a handout. Yeah, it's got one. Okay, it's got 1 to 13 at top and the text about a James Bond film here, okay? What the teacher did was she went to the students, she'd done some work on how to write a film review because it was part of the exam. They had to learn how to write a film review. When she came back 4 months later, when it was close to the exam, and said, okay, today we're going to practice writing film reviews, all the students says, what? We never learnt film reviews. And so she had to kind of revise it all again with them. But what she did was she took the old film review and she turned it into an exercise with gaps. So here's the exercise, and it's also a heads-up exercise. You need to work in pairs, decide who is student A, who is student B. Okay, just decide in your pair. One of you is A, one of you is B. Okay, student A, can you look at the page? Student B, do not look at the page. Okay? Student A, read out the words from 1 to 13. So you've got number 1, a verb. Number 2, the name of a famous male celebrity. Student B, you have to suggest a word, any word. So if student A says a verb, student B says a word like walk, run, fly, whatever, okay? I want you to work together and brainstorm 13 new words, okay? Go.
Synonym of good. Second factor. Comparative adjective. Comparative adjective. Adjective to describe character. Adjective to describe place or location. Country. Countryside. Synonym of bad. Tasty. A noun. Sun. Sunset. Intensify for upgradable adjective. Completely length of time.
Shall we do it vice versa? No? Allow the decision.
Okay.
Sorry, shall we do it vice versa?
Sorry? No, it's fine. Let me stop you there. Once you've got your 13 words, at the top, it's just a way of recycling grammatical terms, lexical types of words, so we get different words. So, for example, the verb, what verb did we have at the front? Go, okay. Famous male celebrity. Daniel Craig, yeah. Female celebrity. Natalie Portman. Okay, synonym of good. Excellent, fantastic, so on. Comparative adjective one, an interesting.
More attractive.
Smarter, more attractive. Adjective to describe character.
Generous.
Easygoing. Appearance.
Handsome.
Beautiful or handsome. Place or location.
London.
Huh? Chelyabinsk. Okay. Synonym of bad could be terrible, awful, hideous, annoying. A noun could be all sorts of different things. Number 11, the intensifier could be completely, totally, utterly. Length of time, a day, a week. Type of vehicles, a lorry or truck. What the students do now is take their words and put them into the film review text. What they get is a text which is confusing and sometimes funny, but it doesn't make total sense. What they then do is then try to guess what was in the original text and what makes sense before they then compare it with the course book that they looked at some months before. The task is very interesting because it's getting students to think about types of words and then the context within the film review, and then of course they've got the structure for the film review to then go ahead and write it. But it's just an example of a teacher revisiting material they've used before. Okay. So, sum up. To sum up a course book in a classroom then, it has many different roles, and the roles should be changing all the time. Okay. Are you with me at the back? It should encourage heads up as well as heads down activity. So we should get that flow of movement within a class. And it expects to be repurposed. It expects to be changed. It wants you to change it. It wants you to recycle language in it, and it wants you to revisit it and play with it. And that would be, I think, the important thing to take in terms of using course books, that they're not a static single thing that goes from beginning to end, that we change around and we move with them in order to make them work in relationship to the learner and the material, the learner and the teacher. Okay, I'm going to just stop there with a day in the life. The second talk I have is a much shorter. It's really just an overview linked to business English. Do any of you teach business English? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so this is a slightly shorter talk, and then we'll take a break. But I just want us to consider the business English teacher. Some of you, if you're students, business English and so on, may be something you're going to come across later on in your career. But I've worked on a number of business English books, and I've worked with lots of business people. And one of the most interesting parts of teaching business English for me is the amount that I learn from the student about business. And it's an interesting sharing process. I've worked on different business English books, for example, one called Total Business 2 and also Success with Beck that you can look at later on. But I've always been interested in the role of the teacher. Now this links back to, we looked at roles before, and I talked about the role of the teacher in terms of coach, motivator and so on. The business English teacher also has different roles, but I think the most important role for the business English teacher is the role of manager, because you're managing a student's learning